Good morning and welcome to Roundtable, public service program presented by Media One Group LLC and this station. I am Jordan Wetson, and this morning I am joined by Mike Cooper of Smart Recovery. They are a worldwide organization who help people with recovery from addiction. And Mike himself is somebody who has gone through the program and can speak to how it works. Mike, thank you again for joining me this morning. And how has everything been?
My pleasure, Jordan. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Yes, pleasure to be back.
We had such a great conversation last time, and it's been several months since we spoke. I think we actually originally talked over the summer. What's been going on in your life? What's been up?
Yeah. It was back in August. You and I spoke when I was first inaugurated as the first state outreach director for Ohio for Smart Recovery. So that was literally my first month on the job. So I'm still here, so I guess I'm doing something right. But yeah, no, a lot's been going on, man. We've made some really, really great expansions within the state of Ohio, which was what our objective was. My position is being used as a potential template for future outreach directors across the country. So what we wanted to do in Ohio was establish sort of a basis of what an outreach director's responsibilities are, what they can expect during the day-to-day, and how they can improve the overall public knowledge of our program. So that's really what we've been focusing on. So, and as you know, Jordan, the heart and soul of America is our communities, and that's where we've really focused a lot of our outreach efforts. Naturally, we have talked to organizations and government bodies. We have a partnership now with Ohio Mental Health and Services through the state government, which has plugged us into some great treatment centers and state hospitals, which are now beginning to feature Smart Recovery as some of their available curriculum for their recovery programs. We also had the opportunity to present our program to the Ohio Supreme Court Special Docket presentation back in November, which they are considering as an alternative for addiction treatment for those unfortunately convicted of drug-related crimes. So instead of only having one aspect of treatment that they could be mandated to, it will now give the individual a choice of what type of treatment program they would like to enter into, whether that be 12-step or something evidence-based like our program. So we've made some really, really great leaps and bounds even in the short time that I've been here. I've had the privilege of connecting with a lot of local community centers and volunteer programs here in Ohio, which has been absolutely fantastic, because that's really my bread and butter is being boots on the ground with the people that are going through it as I used to. So yeah, it's been great, man. I hit the ground running and I haven't stopped.
You talk about outreach, you talk about your day-to-day activities. How has outreach changed since the pandemic and with all of the health orders and restrictions in place?
Oh, that's a great question. And obviously it's made it much more difficult. I mean, for those that do outreach that may be listening to this broadcast right now, who have, some type of experience with, being able to present a product or a brand to someone who may not know it, that type of interaction is usually best done face-to-face. And obviously the pandemic has put a real hamper on that with the lockdowns and restrictions to try to keep everybody safe. So it has made it very difficult. We've had to pretty much move everything that we've been doing on an outreach scale to a virtual level. And when you're first making an initial contact with a potential partner or collaborator in recovery, that's really difficult to do because you lose a lot of that energy that you gain from a face-to-face connection. Not saying that I haven't been able to do it, but it has been difficult, being that, on 2 occasions that I am able to meet people face-to-face, obviously there has to be a limit to how many people are around to keep social distancing at safe levels. So it's made it very difficult, but we've adapted, and we've adapted very well. And I mean, that's something that Smart Recovery's done from the beginning of the pandemic, is adapted very well to it. We were born online back in 1994, and transferring our face-to-face meetings to a Zoom platform was very, very easy for us because we already had an online service for our national meetings in place. This was just creating a similar platform on a local level. So we're still able to reach, a vast number of people through a vast number of different types of social media engines, website, which is international. So it has caused some obstacles, but we are overcoming them. And, we have tried our very best not to lose the momentum that we've gained since starting in August.
When you go through Smart Recovery, you mentioned it's kind of different than a normal 12-step program. Explain.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of fundamental differences to 12-step. I mean, naturally, recovery programs, there's no cookie cutter solution to recovery. So there's aspects of certain programs that'll adhere to the individual over other programs, and vice versa. So what Smart Recovery is about, it's an evidence-based secular program that is, it does not hold a platform as to whether or not addiction is a disease or it isn't. The reason being, our techniques work regardless if you believe it's a disease or not. We don't hold a platform whether about spirituality, whether it's needed or not needed for recovery, because again, our program is effective whether you believe or not. And I am someone who is evidence of both of those factors. I was incarcerated for 2 DUIs years ago in Connecticut, and I was someone who was at my bottom's end when I found Smart Recovery. I was raised in the church from a religious family, so I did have faith, but I didn't have an abundance of it while I was going through the darker years of my addiction. So I was not at a place personally to accept a program that was faith-based or spiritual-based at the time. So when I was introduced to Smart Recovery through the Veterans Association, I'm a veteran of the Army, 2nd 113th, 42nd Infantry Division. I was introduced to this program through the VA. It immediately clicked because it was an evidence-based program that focuses on self-management of your addiction by offering the participant options and choices to mold their recovery program to what best suits them. We recognize that not every technique, tactic, tool, or philosophy is going to be effective for every single person. This disorder is very, very individualistic, as in we may share commonalities with the symptoms of the addiction, but the way we go about it in our individual lives can be very different. So, one of Smart Recovery's fundamental models is that the program, you don't have to change for the program changes for you. And that gives the power of choice back to the trying to recover from addiction. And that's something that really separates us from a lot of other programs, is that we use scientific and evidence-based techniques related heavily through cognitive behavioral therapy and rational emotive behavioral therapy to help develop life skills that don't just attack symptoms of addiction. It attacks why you need the addiction in the first place. By building better life skills and living a more balanced lifestyle, you learn life skills that help you to combat urges and triggers by managing your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, which usually starts the triggers in the first place. So that's something that's really unique about our program, which helps us to stand out from others. That is a potential draw for many. And something, Jordan, that should be mentioned is that our program is not singular in the sense that if you take Smart Recovery, you cannot be a part of anything else. About 31% of all participants in Smart Recovery practice another form of recovery, including 12-step. I had a very good friend of mine who she practices both Smart Recovery and is an avid practitioner of AA, and she described it as, if you think of AA or 12-step programs as the we, Smart Recovery is the I of recovery. And I really like that analogy. The fundamentals of the community and camaraderie that you're able to build in, say, a 12-step program is really helpful for many people for building that spiritual connection and community awareness. But sometimes when those resources aren't available, when you only have yourself to depend on, what do you do? Well, Smart Recovery can fill those gaps because it uses self-management tools techniques so you can help manage your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So by combining both programs, you're really creating a complete package of recovery. So, it's important to mention that, that we are fundamentally maybe different. It does not mean we cannot coexist and actually be symbiotic to the other.
Well, you brought up a good point, and I think it just kind of stuck in my head. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of program, but also it's the kind of thing where you can use what's best for you, and it doesn't hurt to have a little bit more support. So let's say you go through an AA through a church, and then you have Smart Recovery. In the end, all it's going to do is it's going to benefit you more. Am I correct in that assumption?
100%. I mean, and you may have heard it said, if you're in the recovery community, recovery is a selfish process. And what they mean by that is that, to be successful in recovery, the main focus has to be on the person who is in the program. And that means cultivating what works for you. And just like you said, Jordan, that might mean, there may be times that, you need that spiritual guidance or that community connection, and those aspects of what you'll find in the 12-step program will relate more. But then there may be other times when you need to look internally at how you think and how you feel about certain aspects and situations that cause emotional responses that may trigger you towards your addiction. So you may want to learn how to manage those tools successfully within yourself. So you then begin to build a program that's modeled specifically around you as the practitioner in recovery. And that's what Smart Recovery is about. I mean, we understand that's not a one-size-fits-all. Think of it like a buffet. You go to a buffet table and you take the things that you want to eat. Even though there's an abundance of great things there that you may want to try one day, you're not in the mood for certain things, so you leave them there. You take what works for you at the time. And that's kind of how we approach the recovery aspect of it. We provide guidance towards the tools and techniques that are beneficial, and we allow the participant to make the choice of what works best for them.
Interesting. One thing that I want to ask you, Mike, and I kind of thought about it at the beginning, when we talk about the criminal justice system and the people who are incarcerated because of maybe nonviolent offenses such as drugs, or you look at somebody who maybe has too many DUIs. I mean, I guess one is too many to begin with, but somebody who is in there on a DUI charge. Where do you think that the criminal justice system could be better in giving people resources to get their lives back on track? I ultimately know that it comes down to the want to change and the will to change, but do you think that these resources are being discussed enough within the justice system?
Absolutely not. I mean, I can speak to that from experience. I mean, I was incarcerated for 5 months for DUI, non-violent related, drug related charges. So I went through that system. And the problem, the fundamental problem is, when you go through the criminal justice system, it's not fun in any aspect, and it's not designed to do what it says is a course of rehabilitation. It's about administering punishment for crimes, and let's just be honest and state it for what it is. So when you mandate someone to recovery and add a consequential factor to it, it dilutes the effectiveness of what that program can do. I mean, and most court systems around the country still rely heavily on AA through their programs, and it's very unfair to the 12-step program that happens, only because if it's a person who may not be open to that type of ideology for recovery, it gets even harder when a judge or a cop or someone who's telling you you're going to do this or else. When recovery is a very personal journey, it's a disorder. This is not something that someone wakes up one morning and says, oh, you know what, I think I'm going to drink myself to death and jump in my car and drive around. It's not that kind of cognitive thinking that takes place. So why do we treat it as such when it causes someone to break the law? What I like that courts are starting to recognize, like we just did in the Ohio Supreme Court specialty docket, is that they're recognizing that, options are necessary for people to fully rehabilitate. And if court systems start seeing this as a disorder rather than a criminality aspect, then, we can start making progress in how it's treated. So this way you don't see the same person coming back for 5 or 6 or 7 DUIs. You don't see, someone breaking into a liquor store to get money because they can't afford their fixes anymore. You know what I mean? Like, we provide actual treatment for this disorder rather than treating it like a crime and punishing people for something that they're not cognitively deciding to do on their own. And I like the fact now that some courts around the country are starting to open up, their mentality towards the idea of, let's provide options for treatment for those who are not suffering from or not convicted of a violent crime that took intent, but was directly involved in drug or alcohol use and some form of addiction disorder. So I do like the fact that some courts are going that way, but as you mentioned, Jordan, it's going very slowly, and it should be looked at as more of a priority than it has been, unfortunately. But some wheels are turning.
When I look at it, when I look at the criminal justice system, it looks like, and as you mentioned, it's punishment, and right. It almost is reliant on somebody to want to fix themselves, that once they get out, they're going to turn their lives around. But also, it seems like it can kind of be this vicious cycle where you get out, you don't have the tools, you fall back into drugs, you don't have the tools to find, not to say find new friends, but to leave the bad influences behind. So you fall back in with those old influences. And it's, like I said, it's a vicious cycle. Then again, somebody's using or somebody's drinking again. Working in radio, we see these stories all the time. So-and-so just got picked up for their 12th DUI. These are stories all the time. And, in talking to somebody who went through it and somebody who has come out the other side, it's very enlightening and insightful to I guess, how the criminal justice system can lack the resources to help somebody move on with their lives, become a productive member of society rather than somebody who's in and out of prison throughout the rest of their lives. And I think resources like that are very vital. And then the fact that Smart Recovery is in the Ohio Supreme Court and they're talking to the Ohio Supreme Court, and these options and this outreach are becoming more available to people who want to get their life back on track. Some people are maybe, I hate to put it this way, but some people aren't given the tools or don't learn the tools to be more successful the next time around. And
to capitalize on that, Jordan, because you bring up an exceptional point about resources within the criminal justice system, and this also, the reason why I like this what you're saying is because it can also funnel into other fields such as professional entities and medical facilities where we see the consequences of addiction, but we don't have the resources to do anything about it until someone, say, loses their job or someone makes a medical mistake that causes a malpractice issue, because there's so much stigma around this disorder that even when people have done the right thing, I host a veterans and first responders national meeting every Tuesdays and Sundays on our Smart Recovery online platform. And you'd be surprised of the stories I hear from my participants telling me that, they've come to their superiors, telling them they think they have a problem, and they're reprimanded for it. Their privileges are taken away. Their privileges are taken away. They're ostracized. They're not allowed to participate in higher function activities in the company or in the organization. And it's degrading. And then what happens is, because they're treated, and ostracized in such a way, they're already dealing with these disorders that are usually dual diagnosed with some type of mental disorder. My case, for instance, I was diagnosed with clinical depression after leaving the military. And, many people deal with that as well as, stress disorders and post-traumatic stress disorders and so on and so forth. So you couple that with the fact that now you're shunned because you tried to do the right thing of admitting that you have an issue. I mean, it usually turns people right back to the issue that they're trying to avoid in the first place. And you see that a lot in the criminal justice system because I think it starts too late. I think what it should do, if it's mandatory for someone to serve time, all right, I'm not going to argue that point because I'm just not going to get into it because we don't have that kind of time. But if, the court mandates that they have to serve time for a drug-related incident, why, the interaction within the prison itself or the county jail itself usually is done through maybe a counselor or two. You get a couple of hours of video of what not to do, a bunch of horrific videos of people either dying or horrible crashes or someone who was drinking and driving, killing a family, whatever. A lot of consequential videos. Does not really promote a lot of hope for recovery. There are peer support specialists around the country that would be willing to go into prisons every single day to help people like themselves who are dealing with this. But we don't see a lot of criminal departments taking advantage of these resources. And many of these people are working for volunteer or nonprofit organizations that are not looking to get, for the court system themselves to pay them directly. They just want the opportunity to be able to go in and make a difference to these people's lives. So when they do come out, they know there are people that have been through what they've been through. There is hope for rehabilitation. You do not have to be, succumbed by the negativity of the criminal justice system or the stigmas that, professional people, coworkers, friends, or families put on you. There are others that have been through what you've been through. There are others that have survived it. We have the tools and techniques that can get you there. So why are we not taking more advantage of putting this into the system as they go in and then cultivating it throughout the process? So even if it's a 3 or 4 month bid, there's still exposure to positivity to recovery. So those are the programs that, I myself as an outreach director, and I know many others around the country and other different programs, facilities are trying to establish. And I really like the fact that you're bringing this up on the program because I think it really needs to be heard and talked about more.
Well, definitely. And I think it also needs to be said that it's not a bad thing to say I can't do it by myself. And no one really can.
Exactly.
It's not a bad thing to say, hey, I need help. I need people around me. And, sometimes we don't do a great job. And I can speak to this myself is sometimes we don't do an excellent job of surrounding ourselves with people who are A, going to hold you accountable, and B, support you when you want to make a change in your life. There was, I think right. Dr. Jordan Peterson said it, was that a friend is someone who's going to listen to you and they're going to be proud of your accomplishments. And there was another step in being a friend, but, a friend will hear you out when you're going right. through something. And I think you and I had talked about this off air in August was, there's this, I don't know how to describe it really, but there's this thought process when someone is famous and someone is someone who passes away tragically from an overdose. If they're famous, it's, I'm sad that they're no longer with us. And you didn't know them. And then you have people in your community who are overdosing or losing their lives to addiction, and it's just another junkie off the street. And the way I see it is, well, because you loved this artist, this actor, whatever it may be, because they somehow contributed to your life indirectly. But this person is a member of your community. They're someone's daughter. They're someone's son. They're a father. They're a mother, and so I think when it comes to addiction, there has to be, especially with the stigmas of addiction, is there has to be a sort of empathy to what that person is going through, and then for you to go, how would I feel if that were my friend or my brother or my sister or my father?
Absolutely. And I do remember that conversation, and I know that took us for a whole other hour.
Yeah.
but you're absolutely right, and that's the sad thing about it is because of the misconception that we have that someone that is suffering from addiction is somehow weaker than someone else in society because they've succumbed to this,
or their life is less, or their life is
or
worth
their life
less.
Exactly that it has to be someone, well, they're, like you said, those stigma, those terms of junkie or drunk or whatever that people use when describing someone suffering from a disorder that they don't know and they're not famous. So, and you see it in the news all the time. We'll celebrate when a celebrity goes into rehab. All good for them, and and so on and so forth. But then, after that, it's no one really talks about the recovery process after. And and I think that's a field we've studied so much on the addiction aspect of it. I think the attention of what goes on in life after recovery also needs to be celebrated, because I think and this goes back to what we were talking about with the justice system and the stigmas. There's so much sacrifice and loss and pain that we put on the act of recovering. We don't focus enough on the benefits and the good that comes out of recovery, i.e. take that person in your community that maybe gets the chance to meet with a peer support specialist or finds a smart recovery meeting or finds their way to AA because someone takes the time to say, that is a person, let me see if they need resources, if they need help. And then find out the good that person can do or has done in their life since recovering and celebrate that. I am very big on the inspiration of success in the meetings that I hold in Smart Recovery. And I say it a lot in my meetings, so that if there's anybody listening that's part of my meetings, they already know this. I say celebrate the little victories all the time. And that could be from, you made it through the day without indulging in your drug of choice to you actually got off the couch and did some exercise or did the dishes when they needed to be done. Whatever the case may be, if it's something positive that you succeeded at, celebrate it, because as those in addiction, we spend so much time focusing on the negative and the loss and the pain. It's literally a training process to retrain our brain how to acknowledge when things are good, because we're so used to looking at things bad. But when you do learn to do that, and tools and Smart Recovery do help you do that. I was incapable of doing that before this program. I was extremely negative before this program. And not saying I'm some happy-go-lucky jumping over rainbows type of person now. I mean, I'm from North Jersey, for crying out loud. But, I now know I can recognize when the good happens, and I can acknowledge it, I can appreciate it, and I accept it as part of my life now. And that's something I also think needs to be acknowledged about recovery. There is a good to it. There is a great to it. Life without living with your addiction, being free of your addiction, is a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I think that also needs to be acknowledged and celebrated too, as much as possible.
Absolutely. And I think, one thing that you mentioned, and it's just in general, it's one of the tips to being successful at your goals is have a big goal in mind, yes, but break that big goal into little goals and little benchmarks. Hey, today I want to do this. Tomorrow I'm going to do this. Step by step, you'll get to where you want to be. Mike, our time is running short, unfortunately. Okay. And that you and I could go for another 90 minutes if we wanted to.
Easily. Yeah.
Let the listener know how they can find Smart Recovery. You guys are online, how they could find a meeting, how they can connect with you or anyone through Smart Recovery if they're looking to get their life on track or back on track.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for asking. So on an international or national level, you can find our website from www.smartrecovery.org. And that's one word, Smart Recovery. If you're looking for a local online meeting, right after the header of our page, there's a toolbar that says to find a local meeting in our online community. If you're looking for the national meetings, like the one I mentioned earlier about the veterans and first responders, that'll be under the online community page, and you can just look under meeting schedules and events and just pick the day of the week for the meeting that you're looking for, and that'll find it. For the local meeting, it's actually even easier than that. You click on Find a Meeting, a search bar will come up, and just type in your location or the location that you're looking for the meeting to be in, and just follow the prompts afterwards. All the locations will pop up, and that'll include both face-to-face and online meetings as well, so you can find those. To contact somebody within the National Office of Smart Recovery, including myself, on the website at the bottom there is a Contact Us page, which you can either do by phone or by email. If you'd like to contact me directly, I'm at mhooper, that's MHOOPER, at smartrecovery.org. Again, one word.
Smartrecovery.org. That is, again, the website. And, even if you're someone who would like to donate, there is a donate option there, not a donut option, although that would be pretty spectacular.
We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, so we are very completely dependent upon the donations of generous individuals that have advocacy for recovery. So please, by all means, if you do have the means, it is desperately needed. Zoom licenses cost money, and it's been a struggle keeping all these meetings online during the pandemic. But we're having at it, and that's through the tremendous generosity of our participants and our advocates. So I just want to say, if any of you are listening that have donated before, thank you so very much. You literally are saving lives. And for those that can, please do. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, John.
He is Mike Hooper of Smart Recovery, and this has been Roundtable, a public service program presented by Media One Group, LLC, and this station. Good morning.